Liebe Zuschauer, liebe Zuschauerinnen.
Dear viewers, dear listeners, we're glad that you have joined us to continue learning with us in the series, The True School is Life. Today, with the topic, Harmony is the Life of the Enterprise. For nearly 5 decades, the eternal word from the kingdom of God has been given to us through Gabriele, the prophetess and emissary of God. In countless divine revelations and spiritual schoolings, we have also received tips and help, in particular, on how we can put the law of life, the love for God and neighbor, into practice in all spheres of life, also in our occupational and work life. The path of peace and justice, which Jesus of Nazareth gave us an understanding of in his Sermon on the Mount, applies to all spheres of life, as well as his words. The one who hears these words of mine and does them is like a wise man who builds his house on a rock. Already in 1996, Gabriele determined the following. The world, with its current economic system, is on the edge of the abyss. There may still be breathers every now and then that are felt, short phases of apparent calm. But the trend is downward, because this system has no foundation. Where thinking in terms of superiors and subordinates prevail, indifference develops, because others often think for others. Equality cannot develop there either. Where there is a fight of the one against the other on a daily basis, where the fight of the giants prevails in the economy, no freedom can grow. Where one receives a huge income while others are starving, no unity can develop among the people. Where power and money oppress the powerless, no brotherhood can arise. Where the prestigious enforce their so-called right, and the average person is often defeated, no justice can develop.
Gabriele erklärte weiter.
Gabriele explained further. This inequality leads again and again to discord, to hatred, envy, murder, fighting, war, destruction, and other things. The nations blinded by it will again and again take up arms in the belief that they can thereby establish peace. By the use of weapons, one can certainly bring a nation to the edge of ruin, extinguish it, or largely take its livelihood from it. However, warlike and murderous thoughts cannot be destroyed by weapons, but only by people doing what Jesus of Nazareth taught in his Sermon on the Mount. Where the original Christian principles of equality, freedom, unity, brotherhood, and justice remain mere words, which may be spoken down from the pulpit in a Sunday sermon, but are not striven for and lived in everyday life, in the family, at the workplace, and in the enterprise. There one does not follow Jesus of Nazareth, who spoke about fulfilling his teachings, about doing, and who himself was the best example for this with his life. Those who preach faith but negate the necessity of putting the content of the faith into practice, for example at their workplace, cannot understand that faith and life should be a unit. They do not understand Jesus of Nazareth and his teachings. Indeed, they do not know him. Incidentally, they do not know the Constitution of our country either, for which the principles of equality, freedom, and social justice likewise are values of central importance.
Already in 1986, Gabriele taught the basic principles for the application of the laws of life in businesses and institutions for people who want to live and work according to true original Christian principles for building the new era. She taught spirit beings, human beings, animals, plants and stones, all life forms live through the eternal spirit, through the eternal law, which, according to an eternally given cosmic rhythm, causes those energies to flow to the manifold life forms that they need for growth and maturity. Those who keep the cosmic eternal laws and incorporate them into their thinking, living, and doing will find fulfillment in the private sphere as well as be successful in the economic sphere, in businesses. The cosmic, divine, universal law is effective in people and through the people who apply the dynamic, effective law. The universal divine law is harmony. It has within itself the quality of serving everyone who follows the law of life, who applies it in daily life. The universal law is, in and through the human being, the determining, promoting, upbuilding, and sustaining life. Science has recognized that everything is energy. If we apply the divine lawful energies in the right way, they are the best workers in our bodies, in our families, in the businesses and institutions. Those who let the eternal law work through them succeed everywhere. In everything that happens in the family, in the enterprise, our thinking and living, our spiritual orientation is considerably, even decisively involved.
Gabriele erklärte weiter.
Gabriele continued,
Energie ist Kraft.
energy is strength. Those who have learned to use it correctly will succeed in everything that is contained in the law of life as strength, as spiritual substance. Whoever wants to establish and maintain a healthy, flourishing economy must learn to work with the cosmic energies. Human beings can be compared to a hydraulic power plant that constantly takes in water energy and gives off electrical energy. Those who think and live cosmically, that is, universally, are at the same time a storehouse of positive energies. People who are in the divine universal law absorb the divine energies, store them, and use them purposefully at the right time. In other words, they apply the cosmic divine forces lawfully both in their organism and in their businesses. These people are in the flow of the cycle of positive life forces, which receive their energy inflow from the inexhaustible primordial source of the universe, from God, the universal life. They are in harmony with the divine.
sind einige kleinere
If some
oder
smaller
gleiche
or
Kraftwerke,
bigger power plants, that is, people of the same mind, are together, they form a chain of power. It is a harmony that has a positive effect on things, events, and on the respective work of the individual. Thus, the chain of power is like-minded people who are storehouses of the universal divine energy. They shape the radiation of the companies. This radiation is positive, harmonious power. It is the cosmic harmony that permeates the companies and builds a harmonious force field of the company. The harmonious power plants in the company affect the energy field, the enterprise, with their harmonious way of emitting, with their harmonious thoughts, words, and actions. Harmony is promoting and constructive. Like-minded, harmoniously attuned people who shape the company's atmosphere with their thinking and living will not go bankrupt with their businesses if at the same time they are mindful of the business harmony, the economic efficiency. In the businesses where there is harmony, there are no doldrums. There's no confusion. There, the company is not exposed to turbulence-like disturbances. Where there is harmony, there is growth and maturity. People who are harmoniously balanced in themselves are repositories of cosmic power. They calmly affect their fellow human beings from their center of strength. They are concentrated co-workers and are active from within. They animate the company and provide a creative balance between the inner life and the outer life of the company, between the people in the company and the customers.
Gabriele continued teaching on the topic of the atmosphere of the enterprise. The universal law is life. Those who place themselves in the universal law and allow themselves to be led and guided by the eternal spirit, the universal law, those who run their business or institution according to Christian principles, will not have to accept defeat in life, if at the same time they keep the laws of economy, of business harmony. They will be led to success, according to the fulfillment of the eternal law. No business that is run according to the will of the eternal has to liquidate if the employees keep this universal law in a responsible manner. Where God, the law, is effective, there is a healthy work atmosphere and a flourishing economy. The work atmosphere is crucial for the business. Some entrepreneurs of this world have an inkling of the importance of the work atmosphere. They believed they could achieve improvement by external means. From social gatherings to collegial management systems, a number of things were tried out. Successes were usually short-lived. The atmosphere in the company is determined by the owner, the manager, and the employees. It was recognized that the causes of disturbances in the work climate were to be sought in people, and attempts were made, again by external means, to find a remedy. In businesses and establishments that work according to the universal law, there are no company employees. where the divine laws are applied and work is done in accordance with the earthly laws, there are only company managers and co-responsible persons. If a company is to function properly, then the work atmosphere must be good. That is, the enterprise must be healthy from within, starting from each co-responsible person. Harmony is the life of the enterprise. If each individual co-responsible person is in harmony, so is the entire company. The key to a constructive work atmosphere, therefore, lies with each and every co-responsible. If they create a harmonious state within themselves by putting aside their inner and outer aggressions against their neighbor in the company and overcoming them by recognizing themselves in the mirror of their neighbor according to the law of correspondence, then harmony radiates from them. The law of correspondence states that what disturbs and upsets us in our neighbor is what we have within us in a similar way. Those who do not heed this seldom seek the blame with themselves, including when the business fails, but rather with their neighbor.
Gabriele gave more clear tips. She explained, bad thoughts and bad talk about one's neighbor lead to separation, mistrust, and an aggressive atmosphere at work. Important information is withheld in order to be able to denigrate the next person when the opportunity arises. Envy and resentment, also and especially in thought, for example, with promotions and salary issues, are the order of the day. New insights and considerations are not passed on to colleagues, just to enhance one's own standing with superiors when the occasion arises, to the detriment of the overall well-being. Some retreat into their shell because they feel pushed away and reject the machinations of their colleagues. They close themselves off, harbor explosive thoughts and emotions behind their masks, and thus destroy the unity and cooperation. As a result of their impotence and resignation in the face of business conditions or grievances, many drift away internally and increasingly occupy themselves with private or secondary matters during working hours. This also applies to an increasing extent in companies and facilities of state and social institutions. For clarification, a picture. We can draw conclusions from the organism of the human being to that of the enterprise. Every community, including the state and the church, form an organism. Today, we can see more and more internal and external difficulties in and on these organisms. These organisms have mountains of difficulties and problems piled up in front of them, which they can hardly cope with. If the vital fluids and the organs of the human being are healthy, then the whole human being is vigorous and efficient. The company can also be compared to an organism. The owner, the manager, and the co-responsible persons form the organs of the enterprise. If individual organs become ill, that is, if there are disagreements, quarrels, hatred, and bickering among the managers and co-responsible persons, if everyone thinks only of his own good, of his own welfare, instead of the common good, then over the course of time, the entire company will fall sick. The negative work atmosphere has a poisoning effect on the entire enterprise. The radiation of the enterprise is therefore negative, and the products that such an enterprise generates correspond to the work atmosphere. Customers are not attracted by a disharmonious work atmosphere, but rather repelled. The entire structure of the company falters and loses its harmony. Difficulties are the result.
Hören wir, was Gabriele weiter
Let's hear what Gabriele taught further.
Schwankungen und Disharmonien
Fluctuations and disharmonies in the company are caused by the lower human ego,
das Ego
the
der
ego
einzelnen
of the
Organe
individual
des
organs of the company.
ist das Ich der Einzelnen
If the ego of the
sehr
individuals is very pronounced,
dies
this constantly leads to friction and disharmony.
der Betrieb
The enterprise becomes sick.
wenn beispielsweise
For
eine
example,
Gruppe von
if a group of
Arbeitern
workers plans and carries out a move
aber gegeneinander
but has aggression against each other, the move will hardly be able to go smoothly.
die gestörte Harmonie
The disturbed harmony
verursacht
causes
Fehlverhalten.
misconduct,
Dieses wiederum
which in turn
schädigt
causes
im
damage in the material area.
Es werden Leisten
Strips of
von Möbeln
furniture are torn off, good clothes are soiled,
Anzüge
suits
und
and heavy
Bücher
books are
werden
packed
zusammen
together in
in Kartons
boxes,
verpackt,
causing damage
wodurch
to
die
the
Anzüge
suits.
Schaden nehmen. Unsere negativen
Thus,
Gedanken
our negative thoughts
finden
find
also
expression
Ausdruck
on the
im
external
Äußeren.
here,
Hier
in the form of
Form
soiled
von
or wrinkled
verschmutzten
or
oder
damaged
verkrüppelten
objects.
oder beschädigten
The
Gegenständen.
customer will not be satisfied.
Der Kunde
He
wird
will
nicht
also not
zufrieden sein
recommend the company
und
to
wird auch die
others.
Firma nicht weiterempfehlen. Je größer die
The greater the
Schwierigkeiten und die
difficulties
Probleme
and the
innerhalb
problems
eines
within a
Betriebes
company,
sind, umso
the more
gegensätzlicher
negative
ist
the
die
radiation of the
Ausstrahlung des
company complex.
Betriebskomplexes. Wenn wir wieder vom
If we
Menschen
again
zum
draw
Betrieb
conclusions from the human being to the company, it is quite clear to us.
Harmonie
Harmony is the life of the body, of the human being.
wo Harmonie ist,
Where there is harmony, life thrives and grows.
somit
Thus,
ist auch die
harmony
Harmonie
in the
in der
company is
das
also the
Leben
life
des
of the
Betriebes.
enterprise.
Daraus
This
ergeben
results
Wachstum
in growth
und
and positive
Ausstrahlung,
radiation,
die sich
which in
wiederum
turn
in der
has an
Produktion
effect on the production and on the
selbst
products
auswirkt.
themselves.
Lieber Zuschauer, liebe Zuschauer,
Dear viewers, dear listeners, through Gabriele, we learn how every moment, with every thought, we can lead our life and our work into the negative or into the positive. Let's build on what is positive and peaceful and create harmony within ourselves. Then we can contribute to harmony at work with our colleagues so that the whole atmosphere of the company and even the company earnings will develop positively and the divine principles of equality, freedom, unity, brotherliness, and justice find their way more and more into our work life. We will be glad to have you join us again for another schooling hour from the divine wisdom given by Gabriele. Until next time, greetings in God.